Good afternoon and welcome to the Sunset Safari. For those of you joining us for the first time, my name is Jamie and I have Jean-Dre on camera with me this afternoon. Brent is out with Brian on the other vehicle and we're heading off to explore the wild wonders of Djuma and Arathusa Game Reserve in the Sabi Sands, which falls into the Greater Kruger National Park area of South Africa. And we are live and we are also interactive, which means that you can send through questions on hashtag Safari Live on Twitter, or you can email them through to questions@wildearth.tv, or we'll pick them up on the YouTube chat stream as well. And today I'm also going to ask not just that you send through your questions and your comments, but also that you send through your best artist's impression of a bird. And the reason I am doing that is because it is National Draw a Bird Day. And the reason behind that, and there's a lovely little story associated with it, and it's one of the reasons why, of course, we love all of our beautiful birds out here. But the reason that we are asking this of you is many, many years ago, a little girl called Dory Cooper, whose uncle was injured in World War II in England. She was visiting him in hospital. He was devastated by the loss of his leg. Very tragic story. But Dory went across and she asked, or she said to her uncle, she asked him to draw her a bird as part of her way of distracting him. And he did. And she told him he wasn't a terribly good artist. And they had a good laugh. And then every week she would come and visit her uncle in hospital. And all of the soldiers that were there and injured got in on this game, trying to outdo each other with little drawings and little cartoon caricatures of birds. Very tragically, the little girl Dory was killed in a car accident 3 years after this occurred. And at her funeral, all of the soldiers that she had once acted as a ray of sunshine and hope for actually drew pictures of little birds, and they were put all over her coffin. Now, it's a sad ending to a very tragic tale, but it's also a story of light and remembrance of those incredible people who are of such comfort with their innocence and their joy, and that leads to be kind to people, and that's one of the reasons why we're getting in with the spirit of this whole thing. And of course, out here in the Sabi Sands, we have such a vast array of incredible birds that we have plenty of birds to choose from. Now, I did my homework and I decided I was going to draw a bird, but because of the vast array of various bird life, I couldn't possibly have decided off the top of my head which one to draw. So I went with just opening the book and pointing at a random page, and lo and behold, it was one of the most common bird species that we see out here. It was a yellow-billed hornbill. Now, before I reveal my art to the critics of the world, please know that I'm absolutely not an artist. I'm 100% not an artist. I also did it in a little bit of a rush, but I will show you. I will throw myself upon your mercy and throw you my picture of a hornbill. I also then started scribbling about just because I was having so much fun. So there we go. This is my picture of the African yellow-billed hornbill minus the yellow bill. And then I drew an eagle. And then I drew a swallow, but the swallow didn't come out all that right. So there you go. That was my quick sketch. The swallow, let's not zoom in on the swallow, Jean-Dre. It's very... No, Jean-Dre, please no. That was a wire-tailed swallow, in case any of you wanted to know. That is a bird. That is a raptor. It's not an eagle. Its feathers don't go all the way down to its feet. But those are my very rapid sort of artistic expression. I haven't drawn anything in a very, very long time. So it was something of an interesting exercise. This is what I love about Safari Live, is that it challenges us in new and interesting ways. Now, I have absolutely no claim to being an artist. My art teacher, when I was in high school, begged me not to take it right up until the end of school, which I completely understand and valued her advice and took it most gladly. There is, however, another guide and presenter who did take art right up until the end of school. So let's find out what kind of impressions Brent has to show us.
Well, welcome to today's Sunset Safari, and we are with an exquisite little insect called a little acrea. Beautiful, beautiful butterfly. Now there's, and an African vagrant, well spotted, Brian. Now, those little orange guys, It's my favorite family of butterflies, all the different echreas. And this is one of the smaller ones. Now you can see they're very, very sort of slow moving. No real fast movement, even when they're... And there we go, that's a perfect example of a fast and a slow moving butterfly next to each other. So we've got the African vagrant on the right and the little echrea on the left. Now, one is very foul tasting and poisonous to a bird, and there he goes, and the one on the right isn't. So they've got a far more labored flight pattern than the guy who's in shot at the moment, the little African vagrant, who is very much edible. So they fly very fast and very quickly, as opposed to the echreas that sort of flutter about. Now, that form of colouring is called aposematic colouring, and it's to warn everyone that they taste nasty and they're not too pleasant. But welcome to today's Sunset Safari. My name is Brent Leo Smith, and I have Brian Joubert on camera. And very exciting, International Draw a Bird Day. So at some point today, we will be drawing a bird. Brian has already drawn his. I'm going to see if we can draw from life while we're out here. But we'll see how it goes. So let's go have a look what's about. We're checking the area for Tingana. Last tracks came in here somewhere. So we're just going to do a little loop for this, through this area. We get no tracks. We're going to go check to see if Karuda's come back. So let's get going. So we haven't found any tracks of the Tingana coming through the Mulwati riverbed, but there has been a lot of elephants, so it is possible that he's been driven over. No, they're going to... Why are you staying directly behind? So they're going to be slightly laboured in flight there, but a pair of mating monarchs. Oh, sorry, Brian. They're going low. They might land. There we go. There we go. Mating African monarchs. Well done, Brian. Now, there's actually, while we're here, before we move off, there's so many butterflies about. I unfortunately did not bring my little butterfly book, and I should be able to identify the majority, including that one that just landed there. So there's quite a few different whites. Now, the whites I struggle with without a book, I'm afraid, but the vagrants, the difference between a vagrant and a white is the vagrants have, there we go, has that little lime green outside colouring. Now, the easiest white to tell is the brown veined white. And, oh, there's a big yellow as well. Oh dear, it's all happening and I don't have the right equipment. You see the big yellow one, Brian?
Yeah.
Oh, it's just, let me get that aerial out of the way. And it's got sulfur tips to the wings. It looks nice, little orange tips. And I cannot remember that one. I'm going to have a look in the book when I get home. So the yellows and whites are two, and the blues. So the three basic colour schemes are the most difficult to identify when you don't have them in hand. But very beautiful nonetheless. I will find out what that yellow one is for you, because it is a particularly big butterfly. Oh, butterflies. Those were brown veined whites flying past me there. Oh, my favourite echrea. It's my favourite one, Brian. Don't fly, little guy. It is called a wandering donkey. That's why it's my favourite, because it's got the most ridiculous name. And it's going to land again on the little Justicia. You got him. There we go. The wandering donkey. So it's got a... sorry, you don't seem to hear me. 1 second. I've got bars here, Brian.
No, it's buzzing.
Sorry, guys, I'm just going to turn it on and off. Oh, the wandering donkey wandered off. No. Okay. Still buzzing. Okay, well, we'll be back to the wandering donkey shortly. We're going to try to fix our audio. So, across to Jeme.
While Brent fixes his audio so that he can share the secrets of his artistic method, I've come across to the blocks between Gallagher Shortcut and Aubrey's Road. The reason I've done that is I'm starting to be convinced that we have missed the Nkuhumas on some kind of kill at some point in these blocks. I don't know where exactly, and I don't know how. The only thing I can say is that with all of the elephants that have been around, we haven't really been able to track through here. Now, if you cast your mind back to, I can't remember when it was now, oh my goodness. Was it yesterday? I think it was yesterday morning when James was out on tracking team, and he said that the elephants were shouting and screaming away in this block. We heard that sound again yesterday afternoon, and we sort of, Brent and myself discussed it, and we both agree that it sounded like an elephant coming upon a predator. And then this morning when Brent and myself headed out across to Cheetah Plains, and remind me I must get back onto that subject of Cheetah Plains in a moment, but when we were heading out early this morning, there were vultures and battaliers all over the show. Now, battaliers are usually the first birds of prey to find a carcass to scavenge on. Vultures, of course, then follow suit. I have another reason for thinking that, and that is that the Nkuhumas have just disappeared. That's not to say that we haven't missed their tracks walking across a boundary line, walking across a road. With this many elephants about, it's entirely possible that either their tracks got obliterated or we just didn't see them. They might have crossed across a rocky part of the road. And I mean, just driving down this road, all I can see is elephant tracks and branches pushed over. It does make tracking relatively difficult. But none of the other guides have reported seeing tracks for the Nkuhumas. None of the other guides have reported seeing the Nkuhumas themselves. I want to check very, very carefully to just see if I can't find if their tracks have crossed somewhere around here, because at some point they're going to have to go for a drink. So while I look for our lovely lionesses of the Nkuhuma Pride, let's head back over to Brent.
So we've still got the wandering donkey, and then you can see one of those tiny little blue butterflies flashing around in the background. Well, a very distinct wandering donkey. You can see it's got a clear set of wings and a colored set of wings. That's how you identify it. I just love the name, the wandering donkey. And oh, behind it there's a butterfly I've forgotten. I actually might get hold of Jamie. There he is. I used to know that one, and it's on the tip of my tongue, but I just can't remember. I think you might have to forgive me, but from body shape and wing shape, I'm going to say it's one of the Shiraxes, but I'm going to need a book to tell you which one. But another very beautiful butterfly, and definitely a new one for the butterfly list. I think it's a Shiraxes, just from the way it's flying and its body shape. But very, very pretty. And it's quite nice because it's a bit cool. And the butterflies are not quite as mobile. You see the big one there? Yes. Here's a closer look at that big yellow butterfly. You can see it's got a few little black spots on the outside. And they all seem to be attracted to these little yellow justicias. And that's the flower that they're feeding on. Oh, beautiful. Oh, so pretty. So a very distinct white body as opposed to a yellow body. So another distinguishing feature we're going to have to look at when we get hold of the books. Here we go. Flappity flap. Now, it's not only the butterflies in the Lepidoptera family that's taking advantage of all these justicias. Okay, Brian, let's follow my hand. And there's a poison apple. That purple flower there is a solanum. And just to the left of the solanum, there's a poison apple for the flower fundus. We come across a little bit, and stop around there, bit down a little bit. Here we go, the daylight hawk moth. You see it, Brian?
No.
So, there we go, it's climbing up. So there's even a hawk moth. There's another one higher up, easier to see. There we go. So it's one of the hawk moths. It's actually, I think it's not a daylight one. Yes, it's not, judging from the wings. But taking advantage of the cool weather and a nice bit of justicia flava for an afternoon snack. And you can see the difference in flight between the butterflies and the moths. Moths are far more labored in their flying. And they can afford to be, because they're mostly nocturnal. and that enables them to deal with less predators. So our daylight moths are generally either very brightly colored, pretending to be foul to eat, or there's a vagrant and another one, or they are very fast flying with almost clear wings. Very interesting little spot, this. Great spot to come look for butterflies. I mean, we've got the little acria, wandering donkey, a blue we can't identify, an African vagrant, brown winged white, there we go, African monarch. Now, you must always double check when looking at African monarch, whether it's a fake monarch, a bit of mimicry being shown by a diadem where the female mimics the monarch, but that is a monarch, that is not a diadem. And there's also pseudo-acrias, so butterflies that pretend to be acrias, so they also pretend to be poisonous. But that is definitely a poisonous monarch butterfly. Now I have to find out where Jamie is, so I can maybe slightly plan to try to get the butterfly book off her, because I read that Shiraxis, that particular one, last look at him, very beautiful, and it's going to frustrate me till I get the name of it for you. There he is there. So beautiful. Okay. Now, we've done some of the little things. Let's go look for some slightly larger things. Butterflies do excite me so. Jamie. Jamie, what's your position and what area are you working with? Do you have the butterfly book by chance? We will see if we can get... Oh, right behind us. Well, let's go have a look at those. They're definitely a bit bigger than a bit bigger than a butterfly. So let's go have a look there. Oh, let's go have a look there. So more eddies. Those ones are closer. Let's go there. Copy, thanks, Jamie. I'll try and meet up with you a little bit later. Grab a cup. So we're so engrossed in all those wonderful, beautiful butterflies at the bottom of the Milwaukee riverbed. We didn't even hear all the elephants. Hello, Ellies. Let's just go nice and slowly, as we always do, approaching a herd that we haven't been spending time with, just to check. They look from body language to be nice and relaxed, but I'm going to drop the car into low range, so keep our revs down, and hopefully we can get into the middle of them. Hello, Ellies. It's okay. We had an interesting elephant encounter this morning while we were at the Cheetah Plains mast, getting everything set for the first Safari Live drive on Cheetah Plains. And a big herd of ellies actually just walked right into our building site, and we were busy filming and drilling and grinding and all sorts of things like that. And they got a bit of a fright and trumpeted us a little bit, and I had to have a conversation with one of the ladies and ask her to leave. She wasn't impressed. So we will be taking the first live safari on Cheetah Plains tomorrow. Oh, hello, madam. And she's got a wonderful grass notch on her left tusk. Oh, she's a little bit. You can see that indentation there from drawing many thousands of pieces of grass through her tusks. Yes, madam, how are you? No need to be funny. She's lactating, but I don't see the... here comes the young one. There we go, that one there. I think that's probably belongs to that female. The great grey giants of Africa. Oh, they are crossing the road, so let's just move up ahead before they completely disappear across our southern boundary. So, we do see elephants a lot, and it's been so, to you too, so wonderful having so many eddies around at the moment. And now, let's see if you guys have been listening to all the stuff we say. So, the scientific name for an elephant is Loxodonta africana. Now, Africana is quite obviously, or it means quite obviously Africa. So, but what does Loxodonta mean? If you break up the words, see if anyone out there knows what does Loxodonta mean. If you do know the answer, pop it in an email to me on questions@wildearth.tv or use the hashtag #SafariLive on Twitter. What does Loxodonta mean? So it seems like everyone is joining in the spirit of National Draw Bird Day. Lots of you guys sending in those pictures of a bird. Please don't forget to hashtag Safari Live in your beautiful pictures. And we got some more over here. Hello, little one. So X-Ranger is wondering, there seem to be more elephants about at the moment, and they don't seem to be that relaxed. Now, I think a lot of them are coming in from the western Kruger. Oh, look at that. Break that branch. Come on. There we go. So, sorry, back to your question, X-Ranger, and so they seem to be a little bit more nervous of us. I think it's just because they're coming in from the western part of Kruger where there's no concessions or anything, and there's no tourist roads, no vehicles. So I think they're just going to take a little while to get used to the game drive vehicles. But maybe not particularly at us, they're just not used to this scenario. And we're seeing a lot of herds that I haven't seen before. Munching on that veritable bush willow. So the young bull, a little bit behind the rest. She's not looking particularly healthy, I'm afraid, this young one. Hey, little man. So very well done to Raisa and Gail You got the answer to that quiz on Ellie's. Loxodonta means long teeth. So if you break up the scientific name, it means long tooth or long teeth of Africa. Ooh. I've spotted something here, Brian. Since we had such a smashing start to those butterflies. Okay, we'll go to the path. And zoom towards that dead piece of... Oh, no, I've lost. No, it's still there. Okay, come out slightly. And, okay, there we go. Slightly to the right. And zoom. And a little bit to the left. There we go. Well done. Now, there is a tiny little butterfly called a broad-banded grass yellow. Now, I'm hoping it's going to take off shortly. Otherwise, I might help it take off. But when it does, it will show you that wonderful black band that runs along the whole periphery of its wings. The broad-banded grass yellow. But it's not flying, is it, Brian? Should I help it fly?
If you'd like.
Yeah, those Ellies. Ellies are gone. Let me just help that butterfly fly so you can see why it's called a broad-banded grass yellow. Out of all the yellows, it's one of the more easy to identify. This guy really doesn't want to fly. Here we go. You can see those wonderful black bands as it took off. We're definitely one of the most pretty little butterflies we see regularly. The Ellies have meandered off, so let's do the same. So while we go look for impressions in the sand, Jamie's already found some, so let's go see what they are.
Oh, look what we've found here. Something that we've spoken about before, and I haven't been fantastic at doing just because there's so many other things out here, but there's a nice screenshot for you. Let's screenshot those tracks. I'm actually going to hop out to give you just a sense of scale. You can see they are right in the middle of this dried up mud wallow, which I suppose, you know, we've spoken a lot about the sort of the different sizes and the way that we use the word pan. I suppose this is almost on its way to being called a pan. The elephants are slowly going to make it bigger and bigger as they go for a mud bath. I'm going to hop out and I'm going to show you these tracks a little bit closer because they're really nice examples of the particular, what makes the difference between a tortoise track and a terrapin track. And in this case, these are terrapin tracks. And Jandre, you'll just let me know if my voice disappears and I need to shout. Perfect, thank you. Now the question is, how dry? How dry is this mud wallow? Very is the answer. We're fine. So what I wanted to show you was this semicircle, these semicircles of claw marks. And they're shown up so beautifully. It's not often that you get to see this kind of track as clearly. Now, this is a very big terrapin. And with both tortoises and with terrapins, you've got that gap in the middle, like a little tank, is walking down wherever they happen to be walking. In this case, it was in the mud, or what was left of the mud wallow. And in this particular patch, it's come through so clearly that you've just got the claws. Here is the front foot. And can you see that from there, Jandre?
Yeah.
Thank you. Front foot there, back foot there. And you actually really get a nice idea of how terrapins walk. You can see the front foot faces out, away from their bodies, and their back foot kind of faces in, towards the inside of their bodies. This terrapin is going this way, and the reason we can see so clearly it is a terrapin is that their claws are so much more visible in the track than those of a tortoise. But if you really want to go into the nitty-gritty little details, a terrapin has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 toes in the front, 5 toes in the front, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 toes at the back. In tortoises, if you do manage to get that kind of mark, and the claws might show through a little bit in mud, soft mud that this would have been, then you'll know that the front foot has 5 toes, whilst the back foot has 4 toes. One of those tiny little nitty-gritties that makes this a terrapin track and not a tortoise track. Also got a little bit of dragging of the shell, and we can actually track him. We can track his progress as he walks all the way along here, and very often they scrape and they drag their feet. But he's walked all the way here, and then he's stopped here, and he's gone around. And then he vanished. And that's where our terrapin tracking ends. I'm not going to try and follow him. These are very old. This is from when this pan was still drying up. But it's amazing what you can see in here. And then these bigger tracks, where some kind of antelope, I don't know which one, it's almost impossible to tell, has slipped and slid and kicked as they go along. If I had to guess, I'd say it's a warthog. And the reason I know that is, although you can't see it from the angle that you're at, there's a very deep, almost box-like track here. But behind that, just behind where the hoof would fall, there are 2 little dew claw marks. Now, only buffalo and warthog leave those dew claw marks at the back. All right. So, little screenshot for those of you working on your tracking scrapbooks, building up different screenshots of different tracks, just like we talk about building up birds lists. You can do a track list, a scrapbook of tracks, or tracking tips, or whatever you want to call it. That was a terrapin. Okay, unfortunately, not the lion track I was looking for, but it will most definitely do. I don't know. I'm still trying to work out where these lions have gone, how they managed to disappear in the first place. And X-Ranger, absolutely. The wind over the last 2 days would have masked the lion's presence for a couple of different reasons. One is that it grounds the vultures and the birds of prey, which means they haven't had time or full opportunity to fully fly and investigate the area. Sure. Load of magpie shrikes. Maybe shuffle just a little bit further forward. Here we go for our bird drawing day. Perhaps somebody would like to draw a magpie shrike. Sorry, X-Ranger, I will get back to you in a moment. Distraction for now. Apparently lots and lots of you are sending through pictures, which I'm very much looking forward to seeing. Suzanne, at the start of Drive Yours, was the only one that I saw, but that was just because I didn't quite have the chance I wanted to go through and to look. Lovely little collection of magpie shrikes and a fork-tailed drongo, if I'm not mistaken, fluttering about in the back. I'm very much looking for a starling, actually, to show you, and I'm looking for a starling because I've picked up a starling feather, but we'll get back to that. I have to find one first, because then, well, for those of you really looking for a challenge in terms of capturing the bird's color, those artists out there, capturing the incandescent colors, blues and greens of a starling certainly would be too much for my artistic ability, but would most definitely be very tricky to do. But X-Ranger, before I got distracted by the birds, the wind, yes, it would have. Oh, there's one of my favorite birds, my dad's absolute favorite birds. Well spotted, Chandra. We've got ourselves a lovely little feeding party. And poor X-Ranger will just have to hang on for one more bird before we answer his question. Probing the ground, an African hoopoe. And I actually vividly remember doing a drawing of one of those for my dad when I was a kid. He very kindly said it was lovely. In hindsight, it probably wasn't all that spectacular. Back to the wind and the buffalo. No, not the buffalo, the lions, whom I suspect might have killed the buffalo at some point. X-Ranger, the wind would have grounded the vultures. It would have hidden the smell from us, possibly, depending on which position we happen to be in. It would have kept them hiding away and less likely to come out and lie in the open. They would have been looking for shelter from the cold. So they would have been settled around their carcass, possibly finding water in the drainage lines. And it might be leading us to false conclusions and that it upset the elephants. I know Brent was telling you that elephant story from this morning, but perhaps the wind had unsettled the elephants so much that they might just have caught a whiff of lion and got a fright and started screaming like that. I don't think so, but that is a distinct possibility. And that, of course, combined with the wind's effects on tracks and tracking and how fresh a track looks, and then all of the elephants marching up and down the roads, has made life a little bit more tricky. But I must confess, I thought this was a very valid theory. I have not seen one vulture or one bird of prey. And I've explored the whole of this block. I've checked the whole of this block. I think it might be time to expand our search further, a little bit further afield, and see what else we can find. Because it was just a guess that the Nkuhumas might be around this particular area. There's one more road I want to check, though, before I give up on them. I'm not giving up on them, I'm just expanding my search ever so slightly. Very good point. Very, very valid point. Tony would like to know, since I showed him the tracks of the animal, what on earth a terrapin looks like. And Tony, bear with me one moment. I'll just have a look through my book. Oh, my box is so chaotic at the moment, Tony. Oh, here we go. My book of tortoises and terrapins. Now, it would be ideal if I could find initially the best example of the one that we would see here. So basically a terrapin is a mixture between a tortoise and a turtle. Now in a couple of places, let's go with this sort of example just because it shows his nice clawed feet so clearly as he hides in his shell. Now in a lot of countries around the world, sorry, I need to turn my game drive channel down a little bit, otherwise I will not be able to talk to you and think and listen at the same time. In a lot of countries around the world, there's a sort of a universal term for these chelonians, that is turtles, and that's not entirely biologically true. A turtle is an animal with a shell, just like these guys, that lives purely in the sea and comes onto land only to come and lay their eggs. A tortoise is a purely terrestrial creature, or almost purely terrestrial. We've got one species of tortoise that can swim in this area, and that is the leopard tortoise. But tortoises are land-based. They've got feet with claws. A terrapin is sort of the mixture. It's the in-between bit. It's a both terrestrial and aquatic animal that moves between the different pans, spends most of its time in water, but can cover large distances across land. And it's basically got almost webbed feet with much longer claws. And what I'll do for you, Tony, is it's difficult to guarantee something, but I can almost guarantee that at some point we will check, and I'm sure Brent will look out for you as well. We will check all of the water holes and the pans that we go past, and we're pretty much guaranteed to see a terrapin. We drive past many every single day that we're out on drive. So I will keep an eye out for a terrapin for you. Thank you for the reminder, Jack. Jack wanted to know, is the Cheetah Plains drive planned for the sunrise or the sunset drive tomorrow? And the answer is, it's planned for the sunset drive. And I'm sure, as you all know, that we are incredibly excited about this opportunity. There's been an incredible amount of hard work that has gone into getting us to this moment. I went across to Cheetah Plains this morning just to see the mast going up. Well, it's already up, but to just have a look at the site where they've put the mast up and to help out in any way I could. And it's a very exciting adventure that lies ahead of us. listen to the Game Drive channel for 1 second. While I do, let's head back over to Brent.
Dagga Boys, Chelepan, Twin Dams, and there's reports from Birmingham Gala in Buffalo's Hook heading from Cruise Camp towards Torchwood. Look at that, guys, some kudu. I'll be with you in a second. There's a Nkonzo of Wanunengwe heading east from Treehouse towards Mawati. I didn't come out in the Mawati. I'm checking around the area now. Sorry about that, guys. There we go. It's just a very interesting conversation I was listening to on the radio, and let's have a look at these beautiful traphalegons, or spiral horned antelope, and you can see his horns are starting to spiral, this young male kudu. And there's a little one. Hello. Oh, little nervous. Beautiful little creatures. And now we've got another big female coming with two boys who've got a bit more of a spiral in their step. And you can see the horns there now starting to do those beautiful big spiral arches that kudu are famous for, or male kudu are famous for. Look at that. Such majestic animals. So we're back in this area where we think Mr. Tungana could be. Oh, look at this. These kudu are giving us a full horn demonstration. There we go. He's a bit nervous, but there's an adult male, and you can see those spiral horns I was referring to. Good to know that if Mr. Tungana is sleeping around here, these kudu might spot him. Okay, well, let's leave these kudu. The female's looking quite intently up ahead, so I'll just see what she's looking at. She could be looking at another kudu, of course, but always worth double-checking these half chances, especially since Tungana hasn't been looking at his best, and Catherine was a bit worried about that. Now, I did notice he had an injury when we found him in that rainy morning, when he was mating with Tundi, and there is a possibility, I think that injury is a stab, maybe from a hunt. But even if he is uncomfortable now, a male leopard's got a better chance than, say, a female leopard that's carrying a bad injury, because he can always just steal the female's kills. and male leopards are very good at that. But they do have an incredible capacity for recovery and recuperation in record time, the animals out here. And speaking about animals not in too good a condition, I just got a report over the radio that one of the Birmingham boys is on death's door. Now, this is the first Kruger boundary, and they think it might be a snake bite, but literally lying there, not moving, just heavily panting. And as what happens with a lot of animals here, we don't interfere, we don't from humans that has caused this injury. It could be a snake, it could be an internal injury we can't see. And they think probably going to die in the next 2 or 3 days. And the hyenas might get him before then, but I have heard that the Sabi Sons will do an autopsy if he does just die. There is another Birmingham there, so if that other Birmingham male stays with him, it's unlikely the hyenas will get him before he dies. But if that other Birmingham leaves, there is a good chance the hyenas will probably get him. Now, the interesting thing is that even if he dies, his coalition partner who's hanging around with him might even feed on him. So that is not that unusual with male lions. But it'll be very interesting to see if he does die. I always, I'm a bit skeptical when I hear these reports that I haven't witnessed myself, because I've seen and heard about lions that are on death's door 3 days later, jumping on top of a buffalo, happy as Larry. So we'll see. We'll keep you guys updated. I will try to find out a bit more information. The information I did get across the radio was quite sketchy, but I will try to find out a bit more. Catherine's wondering, when will we get to see Karula's cubs? Well, Catherine, as soon as she brings them back across the boundary, so she's in Little Gowrie at the moment, or she might not be. I haven't found any tracks to say otherwise, though, so I think she still is in Little Gowrie. And I will also get on the Eastern Channel a little later, see if there's any updates on her. But if Tingana is in a bad state and hanging around this area, I think Karula's going to try to keep those cubs far away from him, because male leopards, when in those situations, if they can't steal a kill, they might even eat the cubs. I've seen it happen on quite a few times. So I'm just listening to the radio. So apparently this is the area where James lost those tracks this morning. Just gonna have a quick gander about. Well done, Brian. Tracker Brian Joubert has spotted male leopard tracks, or female leopard tracks maybe. That looks a bit no, male leopard tracks. I'm not going to show them to you. They're in quite a tough spot. Well done, Brian. Nice spot. So this is the opposite direction to where I heard the tracks going. So these could be more fresh than the ones James was following. He disappeared into this little river system. So I know a lot of you might be quite upset about that Birmingham boy news, and I said it's by no means written in stone, and also by no means I suppose it is a little bit of a tragedy for us who watch these animals regularly, but it is nature, and animals die, and animals die regularly, and if we haven't affected that, it's not our place to get involved and start trying to heal them or whatnot. If we healed every lion and leopard, there wouldn't be an impala or a buffalo left. So we've just got to remember that everything's an interconnected system, and that's how it works. And as sad as it is for us, it is probably a good thing for nature. I mean, it could provide a gap for new male lions, or you never know. So it is difficult, but one must remember, we mustn't be gardeners in Eden. This is Eden. It's not for us to fiddle with. Sorry, this impala, he just changed the way he was looking, but he was looking quite intently. I'm gonna spend a second here. Has he actually spotted? I think he thinks he spotted something. I'm just gonna see what he does. You can see that's just a little bit more an intent to stare than normal. And also you notice he's not chewing the cud, so he's not ruminating, so he's not just sitting there eating his stomach contents that he's brought up. Now this is, let me just try and get a better view of the impala for you guys. So you notice he hasn't shifted his gaze. Now, often when this is the precursor to sort of alarm calling. So he's seen something, but now he's just waiting to see if that thing moves again. And if it does, and if it is a cat, he might snort. So while we just keep an eye on what he's looking at, Brian, can you see anything hiding under a bush that looks like a spotted cat? Not currently, me neither. Let's just sit with him for a few seconds longer, or a few minutes longer maybe. Might be worth. Now, the reason I haven't charged off to where he's staring is in case that leopard is hunting him. So we'll wait for him either to move off or for him to spot that whatever he's looking for, and then we will maybe go have a closer look, because I think the tracks went off the road back there. They would have gone into that area. He's still staring. And he's looking in particularly good nick at the moment, considering it's the beginning of the rut, or into the rutting season. He hasn't seemed to have lost too much body weight, and he's got even fat rolls on his neck. Now, he might be taking a slightly different mating strategy. He might be waiting till the males that have got all the girls at the moment are so tired and so skinny from chasing, or the other males around, that he'll just be able to be bigger, heavier, stronger, and swoop in at the last minute and ensure his genetic code is passed on. Okay, so he's going to move off. Now, this is quite often when a leopard would move, and he sees an impala moving, so I'm just checking behind us, see if I suddenly can't see a slinky beast slinking. But I don't. Let's just roll back with us for a little bit. Just double check the base of some of these bigger trees. Maybe on the edge of this little thicket here. We're not seeing anything. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick to my original plan. And I'm going to go make double sure that Mr. T hasn't crossed the southern boundary. And then if nothing, I'm going to come back and go have a little walk through this area. So while we do that, let's go see what Jamie's up to.
Here we go. We managed to find a greater... It's a very strange sounding Franklin. Sorry, got distracted. Managed to find ourselves a greater blue-eared starling, or in fact, if I'm completely honest, Chandra managed to spot it. I'm going to stop to have a look at the extraordinary colors that the feathers take on, even in this slightly flat, slightly cloudy light, as it hops in between the blades of grass, searching for grass seeds and whatever else it happens to be looking for. And that incredible iridescence is... And in fact, I think it was, hold on 1 second, I was just trying to remember who, it was James's hat. James's hat who sent through their incredible, James's hat, of course, being a name that makes me chuckle every time, but James's hat sent through an incredible drawing of a Cape glossy starling that wonderfully managed to put into practice what I was talking about how hard it must be to capture the iridescence of a starling. It takes on such an interesting and unique light. Now, here we go. I've got my feather. It's somewhat battered. It blew away earlier, and I thought it was lost forever, but it's still there. It's going to be very tricky to show you this in this light, but I'm just going to turn it slowly from side to side, and you can really get an idea of how the refraction works. So this is the normal, this is the undercolor, the underside of a starling's feather, totally black, And strangely enough, on this side of things, although it is totally made up of melanin, so totally black pigment, it has this incredible overlay of keratin, and that reflects and refracts light. Now, I'm not sure how clearly you can see it in this kind of light. I'm trying to turn it at all the different angles so that you can get an idea of those purples and blues that come through as that gloss. Difficult to do in this kind of weak sunlight. It is a cloudy day, so it's not all that clear. And admittedly, the feather's looking a bit the worse for the wear. Chandra, what do you think would happen if I shone a light on it?
Yeah, it's a good idea.
Should I try that? It actually doesn't come through as clearly. There we go, there we go. There we go. That's what we're looking at when we look at the iridescence of the starling. Totally disappears when we turn the feather to the side, and then returns once again when you get it at exactly the right angle. Isn't that amazing? I don't know what purpose that has. I mean, birds take either the brightly colored route or the subtle route in terms of the feather colors that they have and demonstrate to us. And most of the time it is a reproductive technique to be brightly colored and beautiful, a sign of health. Isn't that really, really incredible? And Aileen, who's watching in the UK as I turn my spotlight off, I think that's one of the first times I've had to use my spotlight on a bird, definitely the first time I've ever used my spotlight on a bird feather. You missed what bird we were looking at. It was a greater blue-eared starling by the looks of it. Very, very easy to confuse with a Cape glossy starling, and I'll show you exactly why that is, since we are sitting here chatting a little bit about starlings and we've had a look at that feather. Cape glossy starlings and greater blue-eared starlings are incredibly similar in size and in shape. And if I could remember how to use the alphabet, it would help a lot. There we go. So here we go. The greater blue-eared starling, number 3, that is the one that we were looking at. And the Cape glossy starling is the one that is just above it. So this is the one we were looking at. This is the Cape glossy starling. And the most defining feature gives the greater blue-eared starling its name. It's that blue extension of the ear. But it's also a slightly blue tint to the belly. But that's not always that clear in practice, and it can be very, very easy to confuse the two of them. It's just that extra darkness around the greater blue-eared starling from its nose to right behind its ear coverlets. That gives it its name. So that was the bird that we were looking at, the greater blue-eared starling. Now, James's hat has done an amazing picture of our Cape glossy starling. And then the last starling, just while we're here, and we are talking about the different bird species, the last starling that you would see in this particular area that you might get confused with is a Burchell starling. The difference is that this is the largest starling that we get out here. It is much, much larger than the greater blue-eared or the glossy with a long tail and quite a lot heavier looking. So it's about, not quite double the size, but almost. And occasionally, if you're really lucky, if you go and visit the Kruger, you might see a Meaves starling, which is also one of the larger starlings, but one that I've certainly never seen here. We're a little bit, in terms of where we are and in terms of their distribution range, we're a little bit too far south for where they occur. Alrighty, I've been speaking to the other guides of the area and just chatting a little bit about the updates about the lions. Of course, Brent has been conversing with you at length about the Birmingham boys situation. Now, I was speaking to Mike from Cheetah Plains and just trying to figure out if he's heard anything else about the Nkuhumas. He says that he hasn't. They definitely haven't crossed south. They definitely haven't crossed onto Arathusa or Simbambili. In other words, the property is to the west of us. And that last we saw them, they were heading east around the Djuma Dam. And so what I've decided to do is widen my search and then work my way back west, and then work my way back east and work my way back west. But just cutting through a block sort of different, grid at a time. Oh, that's a pity I didn't see that. I'm sorry. It was a grey daker on a termite mound. That's about as good as it's going to let us get. Little male grey daker. Oh, and it's being so obliging. And generally, grey daker tend to immediately disappear off into the vegetation. This one was standing right on top of a termite mound, obviously making full use of the nutrient-rich plant life around it. Such a delicate little way of nibbling. It's a little male with the two horns sticking up on either side of that dark strip that is the mohawk. Slide forward a little bit. See if he's not relaxed enough to get another view. Ah, come on, come on. Just need that little bit of momentum. I think he's gone. Yeah, no, he's disappeared. He was sitting right on top of this termite mound. And what I mean when I say making the use of the most nutrition that he can get from it, termite mounds, the termites have brought that soil up from deep beneath the topsoil layer. And so it brings up with it a whole level of nutrients, different nitrates, minerals. And that's one of the reasons why we always stop and talk about the standard guides question, what came first, the termite mound or the tree? And of course, often the termite mounds will take seeds down, or the termites will take seeds down and bury them. And the plant life that grows around the termite mound is much, or not necessarily completely, but generally a little bit more nutrient-rich than the surrounding vegetation. There's something I've just spotted on there, and I'll show Jean-Andre what I mean in a minute. I'm just going to double-check that it is what I think it is, or if it's just a spider web. Oh, no, it's just some dead grass. I thought it was some milkweed to show you, which I haven't shown on the live safaris for quite a while. A milkweed, most of you are familiar with, I think. It occurs throughout the world, and it's something that the larvae of the African monarch butterfly love to feed on. But that was not milkweed, unfortunately. That was just some dried grass in a clump. Apparently you did see the African monarch with Brent earlier. So the larvae of that particular butterfly feed on the milkweed. It is incredibly toxic to you or I, and that's what makes it so, the larvae of the butterfly as well as the butterfly itself, so toxic to predators, or to most predators at least. And that's why it has that bright orange, black and white acosmetic warning coloring. Chatting a little bit about the various bird species of the Sabi Sands, James Hendry's old hat, another name which does make me chuckle a little bit. James Hendry's old hat would like to know if there's any bird species that are invasive to the Sabi Sands. One of the biggest ones is the African minor bird. Sorry, not the African minor bird, the Indian minor bird. Can't be the African minor bird. The Indian minor bird, which was introduced and has taken over, not taken over, but is seen not just in the Sabi Sands, but throughout the entire South African country. And it's a bird that has been particularly prolific in terms of outcompeting with local species, such as, it's part of the starling family. Let's have a look at the hornbill, just because I drew one, and I want to see how accurate my reflection, or how good a likeness my drawing actually managed to be. Can you see him there, Jean-Andre? You got him. There he is. Perfect likeness. Positively identical. And possibly not. Certainly without the vibrant colors that the yellow-billed hornbill has on them. It was quite strange that it happened to be the bird that I opened the page on. So, for example, the Indian myna might compete with birds such as these. There's also a couple of feral populations of rose-cheeked parakeets, but that's more towards the city. It's really the Indian myna that is or has been the most prolific in terms of being an invasive species in this particular area. I haven't seen that many on Djuma. I've seen them once or twice on Arathusa, and I've seen very large numbers of them in the Kruger National Park. So they are around and prove to be exceptionally or very good at surviving. They're resilient animals and very, very intelligent as well, which has made them quite the threat for the different bird species. One such bird species would, of course, have been the yellow-billed oxpecker. I don't see any on these buffalo boys that are currently sitting at Buffelshoek Dam. But a yellow-billed oxpecker was one bird species, not necessarily that was completely threatened by the Indian myna, but that suffered a very severe population knock. Hello, boys. Sitting and just ruminating on life and the cud, of course, with their 4 different stomachs for additional digestive capabilities. A lot of the animals are lying down, or have been seen lying down over the last few days. They've been trying to hide from the wind. I wonder where that breeding herd from last night disappeared.
Terrapin going in the water next to it.
Ah, brilliant. Well done, Gendre. There's a terrapin, if we look very carefully, Tony. Oh, there he goes. There goes the terrapin that we were discussing earlier and you asked about. Here he disappears into the dam. Well done, Gendre. Thank you very much. Not the world's greatest terrapin sighting, but definitely a terrapin, demonstrating that a combination of aquatic and terrestrial ability. The only tortoise species out here that can swim is a... Gendre, can you look at that mongoose that's all the way there on the other side of the dam wall? Can you see it there? It's... I'll tell you in a moment. It's right in that eroded section, and they're crawling about. I'll tell you again. Yeah, just keep. Yeah, it's around there. Oh no, sorry, it's a little bit further to the left. It's right back in towards this drainage line, and I think I just saw a banded mongoose, which is why I'm asking Gendre to have a look. But let's just keep looking at the buffalo bulls. I'm going to keep looking for this mongoose again. Hopefully it comes out. I know that there's a population of dwarf mongoose around here, but this looked a little bit too big for a dwarf mongoose. Let me just grab my binoculars while we watch this dugger boy or buffalo bull come towards us. Our banded mongoose population here are so shy that I think if it was one of them, it has subsequently disappeared. Oh, no, it's a dwarf mongoose, never mind. Sorry, it was a dwarf mongoose very, very far away. I got very excited there for a moment. We hardly ever manage to capture banded mongoose on these live safaris. Hello, boy. What do you think? I think he's made it fairly clear what he thinks. Now, one bird that we saw regularly around here was the Egyptian goose. And I'd just like to send a shout out to Musical, who did us a wonderful drawing of an Egyptian goose. I'm quite sad that there isn't one to show you here, Musical, but I loved your drawing of the very striking Egyptian goose. Now, buffalo bulls and buffalo in general are capable in terms of their numbers of having a tremendous impact on the environment. And we spoke about the invasive species, but Shannon was wondering about whether there's ever a population with a problem with an overpopulation of animals in this particular area? And it's a difficult one. It's a complex question to answer, and it's one that not all scientists necessarily agree on. So there is an argument amongst conservationists, and I use that term very strongly, conservationists who believe that the Kruger National Park area is overpopulated with elephants, and that some of them should be removed from the area. The difficulty is, of course, is that how on earth do we know what an overpopulation is? Certainly we can see the effects with a dramatic overpopulation. They will convert woodlands to grasslands to the detriment of other species. They are a keystone species, so they're capable of shaping the area. But in an area as big as this, 4 million hectares that these animals can move about in, I personally don't believe that that kind of problem is one that cannot be fixed just by leaving it alone and letting the ecosystem and the animals themselves handle that kind of situation. It's very different in something known as a closed system. In other words, a fenced-off, a smaller wilderness area, and there are lots and lots of them about. They are equally important, or play an equally important role in the conservation of wildlife and wild areas in and around the Lowveld and in and around South Africa. You can't have necessarily enormous, you can't have as many unfenced areas as we would necessarily like to. And then yes, overpopulation does become a problem. Overpopulation of lions, for example, can result in a dramatic drop in prey species or general game population. It will negatively impact the leopards, the lions, the spotted hyenas, not the lions, the cheetahs, any other predator in competition with lions, because of course in large numbers they're much bigger than anything out there, and they are fiercely competitive. So yes, generally keystone species. Elephants have to be managed, number of general game has to be managed, predator population has to be managed, but we are just so fortunate that at the moment we're in an area where we don't have to worry about that. It is big enough that it takes, the larger an area, the less you need to manage it. So we have got such a vast wilderness area. It seems as though Brent and I have had similar ideas of checking around the waterholes, so let's see what he has found around a treehouse dam.
So, we are with some buffalo bulls at Treehouse Waterhole. And there's a particular reason we have come to said buffalo bulls, because it's Brian's turn to show you his bird for the Draw a Bird Day. So now, this is a bird that's got a lot to do with buffalo, so we're going to wait for that bird to go find the buffalo. So off they go. Off the bird goes to find the buffalo. Now, can you identify Brian's bird? There we go. Can you identify Brian's bird? You can identify Brian's bird. It's often found in the company of buffalo. Pop us an email at questions@wildearth.tv or use the hashtag Safari Live on Twitter. So, unfortunately, we haven't been able to find the bird I was going to draw, so I'm going to sketch one very quickly, very loose drawing. So I just use some nice shapes, make it a bit easier. And let's see if you guys can figure out what this bird is. So we're going to do it in stages as we drive. So we're going to do a first bit here. And we're just going to leave it at that for now. I wonder what it is. It looks like a spastic onion at the moment. But will the spastic onion turn into something interesting? We shall have to wait and see. So I went for a walk now, and I couldn't find any sign of Mr. Tsingana. So we just had a quick look up at the waterhole. We're going to slowly head back down towards that area, and if nothing there, we're going to head towards the southern boundary and then just double check that he hasn't managed to sneak out without us knowing. Also, very good to check if Kuruda's managed to sneak in without us knowing. So, we're going to do a first bit here. And we're just going to leave it at that for now. So we're going to do a first bit here. And we're just going to leave it at that for now. So we're going to do a first bit here. And we're just going to leave it at that for now. So we're going to do a first bit here. And we're just going to leave it at that for now. So we're going to do a first bit here. And we're just going to leave it at that for now. So we're going to do a first bit here. And we're just going to leave it at that for now. So we're going to do a first bit here. And we're just going to leave it at that for now. So we're going to do a first bit here. And we're just going to leave it at that for now. So we're going to do a first bit here. And we're just going to leave it at that for now. So we're going to do a first bit here. And we're just going to leave it at that for now. So we're going to do a first bit here. And we're just going to leave it at that for now. So we're going to do a first bit here. And we're just going to leave it at that for now. So we're going to do a first bit here. And we're just going to leave it at that for now. So we're going to do a first bit here. And we're just going to leave it at that for now. So we're going to So I had a chat with someone who's seen that Birmingham boy who's under the weather. Now apparently he's showing milky eyes and heavy breathing are the two main symptoms. And it is possible it could be a snake bite. It'd be difficult to say without having to look at him properly, see if there's any inflammation, swelling in certain places, which can be quite difficult with a male lion. They're always fighting with each other. But I think probably the most likely cause could be a snake bite. But lions tend to bounce back. I mean, they're big animals, and he weighs over 400 pounds. So he might just need a day or two to work through the venom. But he is still calling, so that's a good sign. And I know the Sabi Sons are going to check him out this evening, so we're probably not going to have any more information about that until tomorrow. So very interesting, though, that one would always expect it's going to be another male lion to oust or kill a lion, but it can be the little things as well. But it'd be very interesting, very sad, of course, but that is nature. Well done to Tony, Sandra and Janie, who got it spot on, and they said oxpecker. So that was a little oxpecker. There he is again, flitting through after buffalo. Oh, Brian, there's the definite chill in the air. Yep. It has been freezing the last few days. I know you haven't been seeing me, but I haven't been lying in bed keeping warm either. We were actually, while we raised the cheetah planes mast, it was raining, so it was a little bit more tricky than we would have liked. But it's up and it's operational now, so, or not yet, not quite operational, hopefully operational by tomorrow. So sunset safaris, barring any gremlins, but I think they've managed to keep this one relatively gremlin-free so far. So, hi, Nigel, who's in the United Kingdom. Nigel would like to know, is Cheetah Plains different in any way? It is, and that's what makes it so exciting, Nigel. Let me just double check for leopard tracks. You got the left, Brian? I've got the right. And I don't see any, I just see elephants. Okay, well, let's check a little bit further to the west. So, Nigel, it is quite different. Now, believe it or not, some of the crests, so the crests, the high ground between the little drainage systems, or river systems, are thicker than here. So, and we do get a few different species of tree that I don't think we see too often here, like the Cassia abbreviatum, the long-tailed cassia. But the really exciting thing for me is the gabbro. Gabbro is a soil type. It's a basalty soil, and what it offers is a lot more open area, so a lot more sort of vast open plains, and there's a good possibility of spotting other species on there like cheetah. Also, its proximity to the greater Kruger National Park, and a 3-in-a-row plan being the most sort of central water in that part of the world attracts a vast number of buffalo. And the Birminghams literally spent, I think, 3.5 weeks in that area just eating buffalo every day. So when it gets dry, it's going to be an incredibly productive area, and I'm really excited to work it. Of course, there's a chance to see some of our old favorites, old Quarantine and Kunuma, and I'd really dearly love to catch up with Mr. Kunuma, or Mr. Snarly Face, as some of you guys call him. Well, no, there's a very, very old lion tracks. So, Sandy is wondering about leopards, in particular male leopards at Cheetah Plains, and who holds dominion from the males. So, at the moment, the dominant male in that area is Tingana. He has recently acquired it from Mvula. So Tingana is the dominant male down there. But there is another male leopard who some of you guys might know by the name of Shavambalan, who is one of Karula's offspring. And he is now getting to the age where he might start being able to challenge for territory. So there could be a box up there quite shortly. And then Quarantine and Kunyuma are in and out of that area quite regularly. Okay, off that side, onto this side. I'm just trying to make sure I don't cause too much of a traffic jam. What was that? What was that? What was that? No, it wasn't a leopard track. It was a hyena truck that had been half driven over. So, alas. But this is the area where Karula has been passing through quite regularly. So while we have a check, and there's another vehicle coming up, so I'll try and get an update from the east for you. And let's go see what Jamie's up to while I get that update.
We have reached sort of a crisis point in camp where all of the apples and bananas have been eaten largely by one person, but we will not be mentioning any names, and John Ray happened to bemoan this situation when we first set out on drive. So I've stopped at a bush called a white berry bush. Now, John Ray, I think you might be out of luck with this particular white berry bush. It's the one with the little berries on it at the top there. Oh, no, sorry, this one here. Sorry, I always do this to the poor cameraman. I say the white berry bush and they have no idea what on earth I'm talking about. I'm getting out and show you. Sorry, Genre. That was entirely my fault. So I'm looking at these little berries here of the white berry bush. And one of them looks sort of vaguely ripe. And that I will collect for Genre. The whiter they are, the nicer they are. Here's another one. And there is one more. The rest of them haven't quite got to that stage. So in a show of good faith, I'll eat one, and Genre, you can have one as well. This will definitely keep you going for the entire drive. An enormous meal.
Too much. Only one.
Only one. Well, the rest might fill him up. They're very nice. They're really nice. I want a bit in my mouth now. Now Genre wants more. There we go, Genre. I found you a really nice one.
Oh, thanks, Jamie.
That's a pleasure. There you go. I found you two nice ones. Something really, really yummy. That being said, if you do ever come out here to visit South Africa and you find yourself in the bush and you want to have a little bit of a snack, please just double check with a guide or somebody around you that what you're eating is safe to eat. Just, in case you might have identified the plant wrong or something. I mean, I can't really think of anything that is like a white berry bush that is toxic. But you never know. Stranger mistakes have happened in people's time visiting this area, and there are some very toxic berries. Now I just have to find some guari bush berries for Genre, and I feel as though our time shall be complete, or our meal shall be complete. The reason why I'm now doing the safari backwards, it's a bit ridiculous, I'm sorry, but I am doing the safari backwards. I'm coming to look for a terrapin, a slightly better terrapin sighting than the one that Genre spotted, which was as wonderful as it was and as good a spot as it was quite far away. No, there isn't a terrapin. There is a bright little blue wax bull running along the top of the wall on the sort of the left-hand side of the, there we go, perfect, thank you. That was a bird that I contemplated drawing this afternoon before drive. Such a beautiful, vibrant blue. It wants to go drink, but it's a little bit, I think it wants to go drink, but it might be a little bit nervous. Oh, not that nervous. Going down. There we go. Very wonderful. Having a drink at the water's edge. This is the kind of thing, because when you have a tracking quiz, the different questions are graded according to difficulty. And somehow I imagine that the tracks left behind by that little blue bird would probably have been graded a 3, which is the hardest. It's either 1, which is the easiest, something like an Impala track, all the way up to 3, which is the hardest. This is very much a bird-themed drive, but I'm not sure if I'll be able to quickly see if I can't see another one. It looked like a little woodpecker that flew into that tree, but I think it's going to be next to impossible for Jeandre to be able to put on camera. I have to find it first as well. Oh, I can see it. Sorry, Jeandre, this has been a bird in a distance challenge. There's 2 doves, yes. And I'm looking at the woodpecker in the tree, the tall tree to the right of that at the back. And, yep, okay, go to the second branch. To the right, there we go. Live bird filming. That's going to happen almost inevitably at some point. There was a woodpecker there. I think it was a golden-tailed, for those of you wanting to add to your bird list, but I'm not entirely sure because it was gone before I could get a proper look at it. Woodpeckers are also lovely little birds. It's one of the way, I mean, I know we've talked a little bit about the meaning behind this Draw a Bird Day or National Draw a Bird Day, but it's one of those really good ways of actually learning the different species. Woodpeckers, for example, can become incredibly confusing between the females and the males having different coloration, half red heads, half brown heads, in the case of the Bennett's woodpecker, all kinds of different, tiny, tiny little differences within them. Maybe a streaked chest instead of a spotted chest. And drawing those things out in order to learn the difference between the different woodpeckers, if you're a really keen twitcher or a bird watcher, is a nice way of learning the differences between them. And you'll find once you've drawn them out, you'll never ever forget all the different differences. Different differences, yes. I think these nkuhumas have grown wings and flown across the road somewhere, because I just haven't seen a single track for them. You never know, they could well be sitting in the middle of a block on a kill, but we must have missed their tracks coming across and out of the reserve. Not out of the reserve, out of Djuma, out of our Traverse area. Wonderful news from Carla in Holland. Carla is planning a visit to the Kruger next year and would like to know, Carla's not going to settle for just any old sightings. Carla wants to know specifically where one might find, for example, a caracal and an eland. Which areas do they hang out in the Kruger? Carla, in terms of the eland, I'm going to answer that because it's the simplest answer. Most of them are up sort of towards the northern, central and northern areas of Kruger. So around north of Mopani, Shingwedzi area, right north. That's one of the only places where I have seen eland in the Kruger, which is up near Kafuri, which is one of the northernmost camps. And I must say, if you are planning a trip, depending on just how far you want to go and where exactly and how long you've got within the Kruger National Park itself, I would strongly advise going up to the northern area, the Luvuvu River, to go and have a visit and see what you might find there. It is truly astounding and breathtaking, not just for its animal sightings, but also the scenery is incredible to witness. Now with caracal are funny things. They are relatively adaptable to almost any areas. The chances are you'll find them in in areas we know as koppies. A koppie is a little hill, and it's spelled K-O-P-J-E. Koppie is J-I-E. John, what is J-I-E? I-E, yeah. So it's K-O-P-J-I-E, sorry, a koppie. And a koppie is a little mountain made up of little rocks and crevices. And that's a good place to go in areas where there are koppies. There's lots of them around the southern areas. That might be a good place to start and to have a look for caracal. But caracal are like leopards. They are very, very widespread, very adaptable animals. They like to move about the different areas. So they don't really necessarily have a set habitat that is preference, that they prefer. The only place you're more likely, or you're less likely to find a caracal, maybe more likely to find a serval, is the nice big open clearings towards the Mozambican sides, towards the eastern side of Kruger. Now, caracal and serval, part of this secret 7, definitely one of those animals that you really, really should get exceptionally excited about seeing if you do see them. And if you are going to Kruger, have a look at the different apps that are available and the different websites that are available that give you the latest updates of sightings in different areas. So you can choose what animals you're looking for, you can narrow down the area that you get the updates from, and you'll get a time period, a time stamp. And basically what it does is it allows people who come through the Kruger Park area to notify everybody else of exactly what it is they've seen. So it's a lovely little idea. Have a look and see, have a Google of the different sightings apps of Kruger. Just wanted to double check something. Just trying to have a look at this plant that is down here. It looks as if, I think it's actually an elephant chewing gum ball. I'm just looking at the one in the middle of the road there by the track. I'm going to hop out for 1 second and just grab it and show you what I mean. Now, elephants, when they feed, and it goes back to the question about overpopulation, and it gets a bit more complex than that, but elephants in general are quite messy, quite wasteful. Wasteful is a bad description, but they do not necessarily chew and swallow everything that they rip up and put into their mouths. And that, I think, is, yep, it's still damp, actually. That is what's happened here. This is an elephant's gone and scooped up a plant from, must be further down the road, walked along and munched it a little bit, and we can see the bits where it's been chewed here, around this region. And then just decided that actually he really doesn't want it, and dropped it into the middle of the road. So it's all covered in sand, it's been in roots, the whole plant has been uprooted and it is now most likely dead. And the elephant just decided, actually, I don't think I'm in the mood for whatever particular plant this is. It looks like string of stars, just a string of stars flower. And he's chewed up the entire thing. So whenever you see something like this is tracking, by the way. These kind of signs are tracking. Not everything is the footprint that the animal leaves in the sand. Where has he ripped it up from is what I would love to know. There's a whole load of living string of stars here, these bright white flowers. I can't see exactly where he managed to grab hold of it and rip it up from. Lovely flowers, the string of stars. And just while I hop back in, we have a lovely question from Gracie, who is one of our 8-year-old viewers. And Gracie would like to know if the cinnamon bun birds have gone. And I'm going to show you exactly what Gracie means by the cinnamon bun birds. Absolutely lovely little birds. Where are they? Here we go. So, Gracie, no. The cinnamon bunbirds haven't gone. They are around. This is the bird that Gracie is talking about. Beautiful little bird with a cinnamon breast. And Gracie, the cinnamon bunbirds, or the cinnamon-breasted buntings, as they're also known, they've got two different names. They are here all year round. So you see them at all times of the year, along with all of the other different bunting species. And I'll show you my particular favorite bunting, or bunbird, which is this one here. If I turn the page, the golden-breasted bunting. Not quite as pretty as the cinnamon bunbird, but very similar. There you go, Gracie. And Gracie, it's an absolute pleasure. I promise you I've never ever found your questions silly at all, and I love it every time you send a question through. Right, and on that note of our somewhat younger audience, the class of Mrs. Ridge's class of First Colonial High School has joined us a little bit early this afternoon. It is wonderful to have you on board. So for the next half an hour or so, a little bit longer, we will be taking questions coming in from First Colonial High School and the students of the biology class. Welcome to the Sabi Sands, and in fact, our little section of it known as Djuma and Arathusa Game Reserves in the Sabi Sands, which falls into the Greater Kruger National Park area of South Africa. Now, my name is Jamie, and I have a gentleman sitting on the back of our vehicle who's known as Gendre. Gendre is the incredible cameraman that we are fortunate enough to have. We've also got another vehicle driving around with Brent on the back and Brian filming. And we together basically bring you a live safari. So what you're seeing is happening right here in the middle of Africa. And I've just spotted one of my favorite little creatures, so I'm going to see if I can't catch up with it first. It just dashed across the road really quickly. Oh, there goes another one. Oh, I hope they stick around. They are the cutest. You're in for a treat. Here we go. What a perfect way to start off our safari. This is called a dwarf mongoose, and they live together in these little families. They take over termite mounds, and they have an absolutely amazing social structure. Only the alpha female and the alpha male will breed, much like wolves. Wolf packs in Northern America and in Europe. Only the alpha male and female will breed. The same goes for these little dwarf mongoose. And as excited as we get about the leopards and the lions and the various big animals out here, these little ones are just as fascinating. And these little guys are our smallest predators in the Sabi Sands. And with their cute little pink noses and bright beady eyes, they're also probably the cutest. Phenomenally intelligent and fearsome hunters of the various insect species of this part of South Africa. Look at how many there are. Here's 4 of them there, all keeping a close eye on us. And then there's, I would say, if I had to guess at a number of how many there are, I would guess at around 10 in this little family. And they've taken over a termite mound, which has perfect little vent systems that is mongoose size, but not big enough for big predators to go down and seek them out. So that is where they spend their days. And just look at the agility that they're showing, jumping backwards and forwards. And the noises I'm making are imitating the different vocalizations of a dwarf mongoose, and just getting a little bit of a reaction from them. They've got lots of different calls that mean different things. Now, I know it's hard while you watch through the screen to get, whoop, hello, latecomer, to get a perspective of the size of a dwarf mongoose. Now, they are all essentially the size of large domestic rats. I don't know how many of you have friends or know someone with a pet rat. The dwarf mongoose is roughly the same size with a slightly fluffier tail, much smaller than a ferret or a polecat or an ermine that you might see around the States. They are tiny little animals, but tiny as they may be, they are not to be underestimated. I've had a mongoose dangle from my nostril before. It was a friend of mine who had rescued it, and I ended up caring for this little mongoose. And because they are such social creatures, they are most definitely not an animal that should ever be kept as a pet. They're wild animals. This particular one had been rescued. It was separated from its family. But as soon as she reached sexual maturity, she started trying to scent mark. She bonded to certain people, but not to others, and was just so confused. And it was actually quite heartbreaking to see. As it was, I was one of those people who she didn't quite fully bond with, and I ended up with very sharp teeth hanging from my nostril. So a sense of scale, she's probably about, from the tip of my fingers to there, would be about the length of a dwarf mongoose, nose and tail and all, and about the same height, actually. So they are really, really tiny. Now, Ambriel, as we are closely watched, and we watch closely, you were wondering, do they eat the termites? And the answer is no. They generally don't. They might snack up the odd termite every now and again, but for the most part, they've chosen the termite burrows as a home where they can feel safe. And so what they'll usually do is they'll take a part of the termite burrow that isn't currently being occupied by any termites. Bear in mind, of course, that a termite mound is like the tip of an iceberg. There's far more going on underneath the soil. You're probably seeing about a tenth, maybe even less, of the total area that the termite colony will inhabit. So this is just one little section, and the dwarf mongoose have taken over there. I mentioned the little noises that I was making and the different vocalizations that mean different things. And Jasmine, you were wondering what would be a predator of a dwarf mongoose if they make different vocalizations and alarm calls. Eagles, snakes, some of the smaller species, smaller, rarer species of cat, and by that I mean a serval or a caracal, the mysterious and nocturnal small cats or medium-sized cats, a jackal, which is basically Africa's equivalent of a fox. And those are sort of the main enemies. Now, I had the most amazing sighting with a giant cobra that had moved through an area that the dwarf mongoose were foraging in. And the interaction from that moment on, the cobra shot away as soon as I entered the scene. It was afraid of me. But the dwarf mongoose immediately moved all of their babies from one den site that the snake had obviously discovered to another. And it was amazing to watch these tiny little creatures hoisting up the babies, carrying them by the scruff of their necks, and transferring 5 of them safely across to a termite mound just like this. And the more you look at dwarf mongoose, the more you see them all around you. But Jasmine, something like a lion or a leopard, these things are a little bit too small for them to be bothered with. But I did have one particular sighting with a young male leopard that was learning to hunt and learning to kill, and that goes for lion cubs and leopard cubs and cheetah cubs. That hunting instinct within them is very strong, and they practice on small animals such as the dwarf mongoose. In this particular case, the young male picked it up, fiddled with it a little bit, but wasn't really showing any sign of wanting to eat it. And Crystal and Alana, just quickly with your question about our lovely dwarf mongoose, you were saying, are they related to rodents? What kind of animal are they related to? So your closest relative would be something like a skunk or a polecat or a ferret, if any of you are familiar with those. Those are probably your closest relatives that you will get. And they are part of the Herpestidae family. So not rodents at all, but their own completely separate family. let's head back over so that Brent can say hello to you all and have a look at the giant bird that he's found.
So we've got some white-backed vultures perched in a dead knobthorn tree. Now, I think this late in the day, it's possibly not a kill. I think they're just up for the rest. But I would normally go have a walk in here to have a look, but someone else has already done it for me, so we're not going to. But incredible animals. They're very, very important part of the ecosystem. Now, they are one of the main things that stop disease spreading. So if there's a carcass left, all those little bits of rotting meat and whatnot, they come there to clean them up, and they stop a lot of disease and stuff by that. And they're incredibly immune to most nasty diseases. So really, really important function of the ecosystem. Now, they are under quite a lot of threat through lots of different parts of Africa and for lots of different reasons. The main reason being that they have been poisoned. So farmers trying to stop normally bigger predators, lions, hyenas, leopards, from killing their livestock, will often poison the carcass. And that is a very ineffective way, because of course they feed on everything. So everything that feeds on it, all the different predators and vultures, the jackals, everything will be affected by those poisons. There's another reason that it happens, and that's because in certain African cultures, vultures are quite a mystic being, and they have possess the skill to see very, very big distances. So if you eat a soup of vulture's eyes, you can see into the future. So there is also some illegal trade in vulture body parts and in bones and eyes and skulls and stuff. So they've made a good comeback in this area, but in other parts of Africa, they're still under threat. So for those of you who didn't know, it was National Draw a Bird Day. So I've been drawing from life, so there's my drawing. And I think we're going to leave this now because there's lots of stuff to see, and I'm finished with my art class for the day. So Heather from Mrs. Ridge's class, sorry about that, was asking a question, but I was waffling. And it's a very, very good question. It's how long do vultures live for? And they can live very long for a bird. I'm trying to remember exactly, but I think up to about 30 years, and they can travel vast distances as well. I will double check that for you, Heather. I'm not 100% sure on how long they live for, but I will double check it. So we're going to pop through onto this big open grass patch here. That's called Impala Plains. Now, Brooke's wondering, what time do the vultures usually hunt? Well, Brooke, they don't normally hunt, they're scavengers. So they fly incredibly high in the sky, and they can see for more than 5 miles. And they'll be able to spot a dead animal, and then they'll descend and start feeding off that carcass. Now, certain vultures will hunt if they're desperate, but normally they'd prefer to find something that's already dead to eat. And certain vulture species have certain niches in the ecosystem, depending what they are. So here we go, we've got the lappet-faced vulture, and he's the biggest, he's the boss of all the vultures. Now, Ambriel was wondering, are they aggressive towards each other? Yes, they are. They will fight each other and other vulture species. So then the next biggest guy is the Cape vulture. So this is vulture hierarchy. Lappet-faced vulture, Cape vulture, white-backed vulture, white-headed vulture. We don't get the Ruppel's griffin here, but then at the bottom, where's he gone, is the hooded vulture. Now he's there, right at the bottom of the vulture food chain, and he's got this tiny little bill. So he's able to feed off the scraps that the bigger vultures can't. So they're generally on the peripheries, and once all the bigger vultures are moved off, he'll go eat all those little bits of sinew And maybe that's another hooded vulture picture for you. So they are the smallest of the vulture species. The white-backed vulture, the most common one we get here. And you can see very distinct white-backed. And the ones we were looking at just now were white-backed vultures. So on a big carcass, say something like a, see I'm pushing the wrong button, that's why, let's say an elephant carcass or a buffalo carcass, sometimes the other vultures will have to wait for these guys. Now they're the biggest and most impressive of the vultures, and they've got incredibly strong beaks, and they're able to open up carcasses that the others aren't, that the others can't rather than aren't. So it doesn't look like there's too much out here on the open plains. So, going further on Ambriel's question, who asked, are they aggressive and do they compete? They do. They compete around carcasses and they are very aggressive towards each other. Oh, there's an animal on the edge of Impala Plains. Some impala. Off in the distance, you can see them there. The most numerous antelope in Africa. So Trudy would like to know how many animals we see in a day. Trudy, lots is the answer. We see quite a few different species. In numbers, I wouldn't have any idea. Over 100 easily, probably 200. But in different species, the most common one we see are those beautiful little impala. And we see elephants most days. We see buffalo, kudu, waterbuck, steenbok, duiker, mongoose, leopard, lion. We probably see about 15 to 20 species on average a day, and probably over 200 individual different animals. Dan is wondering what type of car we're driving. We're driving a modified 4x4, Dan, and it is a short wheelbase, so it is very, very short, which enables us to get into the thickets and bush when we're following things like lions and leopards and wild dogs. So you used to, when it was new in the shop, it had a roof and normal seats and everything, and we took a grinder and we cut it all off and changed everything and to be able to film from it. And there's a special antenna that sits on the back that sends the signals back to your classroom. Trudy would like to know how I got this job. Did I learn more about animals in school or seeing them in the wild? Well, Trudy, for me, definitely seeing them in the wild. But then again, the wild was my school. So I've been very lucky. I've grown up in the bush. And I actually, when I was quite young, my little brother and myself, we had a teacher who lived with us in the middle of a game reserve. So mostly I'd say I've learned the most from other people who've been in the bush a long time. Some of the local trackers, the other rangers. And even now, we learn from each other every day. So you never stop learning in the bush. You can learn something new every single day. It's like a big fun school that never ends. So let's go see what Jamie's up to, and we're going to go see if we can find a leopard.
Sometimes important out here to stop every now and again and just take in the scenery that is around us. Life for us works at a very different pace, and we're very fortunate in that we've got moments to be able to stop and to look out over views like this. Are you looking straight west, as you can tell, as the sun slowly sets, towards the great Drakensberg Mountains. Drakensberg Mountains, I'm sorry, I'm distracted. Chandra, I don't know if you're going to be able to capture this, but that drongo is chasing the lilac-breasted roller. One of our birds it's a fork-tailed drongo, a tiny, tiny little bird that was going after a lilac-breasted roller, which is a much larger bird, and just chasing it away. I wondered why it was screeching like that. There we go, off it flaps into the distance. Luckily we have the most incredible cameraman. Right, distraction, and there are all kinds of things to distract us out here. Let's go back to the Drakensberg Mountain. Oh, we've got a hornbill now. Oh, yeah, the drongo's going for it again. That is a very bad-tempered drongo. They're both, neither of those birds are birds of prey. There's no reason for it to be doing that. But drongo in particular are very, very aggressive birds. They are not afraid of a fight one little bit. I've seen them chase birds that are 10, 20 times bigger than they are. Now, Heather, you were wondering, let's go and look at our view while I answer this, rather than looking at me. Heather was wondering about what the most aggressive animal is that we get out here. And it depends. It depends what you mean by aggressive, in terms of towards people or in terms of towards other animals. Towards people, two of our largest mammals capable of inducing injury, in that I hesitate to use the word aggressive. I don't like it when describing wild animals. It's more of a human term. Wild animals respond aggressively because they're afraid or because they are angry and feel trapped. But in terms of most aggressive, the buffalo bull in particular, and the hippopotamus are probably responsible for most of the aggressive responses towards people. But all of our big animals deserve respect and deserve to be treated as capable of being aggressive. The honey badger, the tiny little honey badger that probably isn't ever going to be a threat to people, but many of you will have heard of a honey badger. It's very similar to a badger that you might be familiar with, but more like a mixture between a mongoose and a badger, quite probably about this big, about the size of my arms, and very much known for its aggressive nature. But then again, aggressive suggests that the animal goes out looking for a fight. That hardly ever happens. Animals out here just want to get on with their day-to-day existence, and any aggressiveness towards people is usually provoked by people's actions. For example, we had an encounter with elephants this morning, where they were just a little bit too unhappy with us and taken by surprise. So those would probably be the most aggressive animals. James, you were wondering about the rarest animal that we could see. The rarest animal, by far, in terms of mammals, I'm now not talking insects or birds, which I'm not discounting them. They just don't fall on the list. This is by far, if I could remember how to count, sorry, hold on 1 second. This is by far the rarest animal that you could see out here. A ground pangolin. It is very similar to sort of a walking artichoke or pine cone. A little nocturnal animal, tiny little thing, only a couple of kilograms or a couple of pounds in weight, that wanders about looking for termites and ant species and scratching them open with those very large claws. Now, in terms of, we know a lot about the larger animals and the poaching problems. In terms of the most poached species out here, that is probably one of the highest on the list. Pangolin scales valued for their completely imagined medicinal uses. They're keratin. They're keratin like fingernails and hair, but they are poached for that particular purpose and shipped across overseas. And you hear stories about a ton's worth of pangolin being found. And when you think about how many pangolins that must be involved whenever there's a trafficking bust, it is something that's very, very distressing. But out here, we are so fortunate in that we're in a perfectly protected area. I've seen 2 pangolins in my life. Jandre, I don't know how many you've seen. 1. Jandre has seen 1. And that was purely by chance. But the wonderful thing about it is that when you do see something like that, it is unbelievably exciting. Something that we all we lose our minds over. So pangolin, it's also very, very shy and mysterious. We hardly know, much like the fact that there was a little antelope species there. Well done, Jandre. Talking about shy and secretive, that little steenbok was sitting watching me the entire time from behind the bush, listening to me talk and hoping I hadn't seen him. It was only when I came around the corner that he realized I was going to find him. Now, Ilani, you were wondering, in terms of our day-to-day lives, and we do lead quite very different lives. You were wondering how long we spend on the reserve. Most of us live out here. Now, generally what happens when you work in the bush, because you work 7 days a week, you work very long days because it requires early mornings and it requires late evenings. In general, we work a 6 week on, 2 weeks off cycle. Or in some places it's a 3 week working and 1 week off cycle. And that's to just prevent burnout, and that's to allow people who are living out here not to get any kind of cabin fever. It's quite an isolated existence. It's one that I love. It's not for everyone, but one that I absolutely enjoy every moment of. And what you'll find for most of us is we go on holiday to the bush anyway. And Amanda was wondering what my favorite animal to find is. That is such a difficult question. I really wish I could tell you. It depends on my mood of the day. It depends on what I'm looking for. It's so tricky. Elephants to me are always going to be incredibly special. Spending time with a herd of elephants and sort of taking in their wisdom and their serenity is something that I never ever take for granted, and I always feel privileged to enjoy. Wild dogs are always incredibly exciting. If you're in that kind of mood and you want to follow wild dogs, they're the most incredible hunters. But for me, I think my favorite is unfortunately one that we do not show on our live safaris due to the poaching problems. But I will always have a very special spot.
Sorry about that. Sometimes when we're live in the African bush, we have a little bit of technical difficulties, but I'm sure they'll be sorted out quite quickly. Oh, hang on. This is a very bumpy road. So Crystal's wondering, do most animals come out at night or during the day? Well, Crystal, you get nocturnal species that are generally only out at night, and then you get diurnal species who are only out during the day. Now, they're always out there, but they're more active during those periods. And then you have my favorite, which is crepuscular species. Now, crepuscular means most active at dusk and dawn. And Brian's, you see something? I thought Brian was pointing at something, but he's not. So you have a variety of species that are active at different times. And I would probably say the most is diurnal for your herbivores, your big animals, buffalo and zebra and giraffe and impala. And a lot of your predators are nocturnal, lion, leopard. But my favorite two of my favorite animals are crepuscular, and that is the cheetah and the African wild dog. Now, when we look at this absolutely gorgeous view I'm about to show you, or Brian's about to show you to be absolutely correct. Now look at that. There's the sun setting behind the Drakensberg. And we're going to have a quick chat about the Drakensberg in a few minutes. But first, let's go and see what Jamie's got.
Back to the conversation we were having about one of the most aggressive animals out here. Now, as I said, I don't define them as aggressive, but buffalo bulls in particular have been known to, let's just say they've chased me up a tree once or twice in my time in the bush on foot. Of absolutely no threat to us in the car, however, which means that we can sneak up a little bit closer and go get a lovely view of one of Africa's big 5 members. And while I head across in this direction, I've spoken about our untapped wilderness. You were looking out across the view of our lovely area. Alex, you were wondering about how big the reserve is. Now, we drive on a little portion. Oh, shame, it's the buffalo with the wounded shoulder. Alex, the quick answer is our little section is around 2,000 hectares, so 2,000 football fields. But we are in a wilderness area that ranks about reaches up to about 4 million hectares, crossing into Zimbabwe, Mozambique, with no fences in between. 4 million football fields. Now just have a look at what this oxpecker is doing, because it's such an interesting example of the relationship between the two. Oh boy. So he is covered in ticks, and for the most part a bird like that will help rid him of ticks and parasites. But when a buffalo has an injury like this one does on his shoulder, the birds will peck and tear at it and keep it from healing completely. That is a red-billed oxpecker. And usually they have a perfect mutually beneficial relationship with the buffalo. But when the buffalo has an injury like that, it completely turns into a relationship that could only be described really as parasitic in nature rather than mutually beneficial. There's not that many examples of natural symbiotic relationships that could go such different directions, because one oxpecker like that could eat 1,000 ticks on a buffalo in a day. We're lucky we've got a whole group of what we nickname Dugger boys or mud boys wandering along the road. There's a couple more. They look like they were having a bit of a push and a shove. There they go. Whoop. Brent has found another wonderful view of the sunset, so go and have a look while I get a bit closer.
So Brian and I are still here looking at this magnificent sunset. Now, the very interesting thing is, well, I'm about to talk to you about a mountain, but you think, well, mountains should be geology, not biology. But it is a very important thing. So this mountain range and many mountain ranges throughout the world create natural barriers that cause speciation in some places. So you have an example of blue wildebeest, which lives down here in the low veld, and you have a black wildebeest who lives up on the high veld above there. Now they've come from the same ancestor. They split about 1 million years ago, but these mountains have provided a very significant barrier for them to join again, and so they've completely become separate species and have very different feeding patterns and that. So mountains, rivers, and other big natural barriers are really, really important in the evolvement of species. Now, you'll have certain species that will be able to cross that, like lions and leopards, and it all depends. Another fascinating thing, down here, we've got lots of trees. On top there, it's almost all grass. So up there, you have almost no animals that eat leaves. You only really have animals that eat grass. So, and down here, we've got a mixture of both. So it's very, very interesting when you look at this type of stuff. But hopefully I've got a little surprise in store for you in not too long. But while we make our way towards the surprise, let's go look at those buffalo with Jamie.
Last two buffalo bulls making their way past us. Now, one buffalo bull of this size probably weighs close to 900 kilograms in weight, which puts it nearly at 2,000 pounds. They are absolutely enormous bovids, and whilst they might look a little bit like cows, they are definitely not to be confused with them. That thick boss in the base of the horns is pure bone, all the way from the brain case right up until the top part of the horns. They're absolutely enormously hard substance, and that, of course, for them is for competing with each other for access to mates, so they fight, clashing heads. Unlike antelope species, unlike deer in the Americas and within Europe, our antelope and our bovids, like the buffalo, do not ever shed their horns. That is pure bone that will be with them for the rest of their life. Doesn't seem as though we're going to get another nice view of those buffalo, despite best efforts. Alex, you were wondering about how big a buffalo could get. As I said, a big buffalo bull, around 900 kilograms. So that's close on to 2,000 odd pounds of pure muscle and weight. Definitely, and of course, bearing in mind that a buffalo bull like this might look slow and laborious as it moves through the bushes, but when they want to, they can cover ground at around 15 meters per second. And I'm talking uphill, downhill, places you never would have expected a buffalo to be able to go. 15 meters per second, that's 15 feet in 1 second. You close your eyes and imagine sort of something running across from one side of your classroom to the other. Close your eyes and open them again. I'm not sure where exactly you are watching our show, but that buffalo could essentially cover that distance in the space of a blink of an eyelid. But not something you want to see. Oh, look who's here. Hello. I was about to say, that doesn't look like the buffalo view we've just had. Hello, little spotted hyenas. Now this is one of my favorite animals to see. This is my favorite predator on the reserve. Spotted hyena. And I'm so chuffed because it's been a while since I've seen them. What are you mischiefs up to? Are you up to no good? Oh, that's a little sub-adult. The reason I say spotted hyena are my favorites, they've got such an unfair reputation. What's going on, little hyena? Look at its body language. Constantly glancing backwards and forwards. Something's interested in it there. So that animal that you just looked at, despite its unfair, bless you, Jandre, despite its unfair reputation as a dirty scavenger and a thief of other animals' kills, it is a hunter in its own right. And not just that, it's the most intelligent, hands down, the most intelligent predator here. And that's actually been relatively proved through both my personal observation to me, they're gone already. They've already managed to disappear into this block. My personal observation, but also studies that have been done into their interactions with each other and other animals. Amazing. Completely vanished in that split second it took me to get here. I just want to sit here and listen to whatever it was that had that one so unsettled staring down the road. It could well be a leopard. We had tracks of a male leopard coming into this area, so you never know. I just want to keep an eye out. While I do, I'll just tell you about the study that they conducted on spotted hyenas and the fact that they actually proved to have better cognitive and social communication skills than, in certain cases, chimpanzees, and most definitely more so than lions when given puzzles to work out, human-made puzzles that involved meat as a reward. Complex social structure. The females are bigger than the males in all circumstances. They have higher levels of testosterone, and in fact that has given them a pseudo-penis through years and years of evolution. Most fascinating matriarchy in the way that they sort of... What is that? It's a buffalo. It's another buffalo. I think the hyena must have spooked it and it's gone looking for the rest of its clan. You can just see it. Jandre's managed to get a lovely view of it. And Alana, you were wondering why the hyenas move their tails so much. Hello, buffalo. He's clearly got a fright from the spotted hyenas. He probably couldn't quite see them. Buffalo eyesight isn't great. Alana, the hyenas move their tails like that because it is an important part of their visual communication. So they tell you their mood based on blinded by the bright presenter light. Sorry, Chantre. They base their mood, or they express their mood purely in the movements of their tails. So the upward-facing tail is an excited hyena. Swishing from side to side might be a little bit of a stressed-out hyena. Tucked underneath their bodies, just like your domestic cats and dogs at home, immediately tells you that that is an unhappy animal. So you can read their language out here just like you've learnt about the different body language of your domestic pets. And Kayla, I mentioned that they were the most successful hunters out here, and I'm just going to keep checking. You were wondering about how hyenas hunt, and the answer is, unlike lions and leopards that are ambush predators that wait until they've snuck close enough to surprise that animal, a spotted hyena has tremendous amounts of stamina. They're smaller than lions, so they don't overheat, and they've got those sloping backs which of course gave them that horrible reputation of being sneaky creatures of darkness, but in fact means that they can cover enormous ground. So what they do is they run down their prey until the prey is just too exhausted to continue on, and then they grab it and essentially, not to be too graphic, but they essentially disembowel it. So they rip open the stomach cavity. Now that actually in the end is very often a faster death for any animal out here. The sunset is absolutely spectacular. But yes, the death that a hyena imparts is usually quicker and less stressful for the animal than that of a leopard or a lion slowly strangling it. Look at the sunset. Isn't it absolutely stunning? I've been desperately trying to find our hyena den. We have a clan of spotted hyenas with 5 cubs under the age of 5 months old. You guys will just have to keep watching. Don't forget that we do this twice a day, every day. And so if you find yourself wanting to find out more about our wonderful animals and the wonderful area that we live in, you can tune in anytime you like. Right, class of Mrs. Ridge, I hope you've had a fantastic time. Apparently you are all on your way. So I will say farewell for now and say enjoy the rest of your school day. I hope to see you again on the back of our safari vehicle someday. Cheers, guys. Okie dokie. Back to our regular audience. I've been getting some amazing visuals of the different big pictures of the birds that you have been drawing for us. And I really, really enjoyed Doodle's picture of a tree that she described as Gendre intrigued and fascinated by this incredible sunset. All right, shall we stop one more time for that, Gendre? Okay. Let's find a spot. Oh, I think I might have ruined the best spots, but let's find a spot. No, there's a tree in the way there. Shall we stop and enjoy the sunset for a few moments in silence and just listen to the sounds of the bush? Lots and lots of crested francolin being the predominant sound that I can hear. Definitely totally worth spending a little bit of time to watch that in silence. The drawing a picture of a bird day, Doodles sent through a picture of a tree with a caption that said, and a bird flying away in the distance, and a caption that said, "This is a highly detailed picture of a roller, I promise, just very far away." I did really enjoy that. I can't remember the other ones that have come through, and I seem to have mislaid my phone that I was looking at them on. But I did really, there we go. I did really appreciate all of the offers that you guys have drawn for National Draw a Bird Day. And Tony apparently tried to draw a hornbill and came up with Kermit the Frog wearing a hornbill hat, which I also thought was absolutely hilarious. So very well done to you guys. I really appreciate you all being such good sports. We stopped there for a moment just to listen to the various night sounds of the bush. Andrew, you were wondering what the most common bird call is. out in the low veld, which is where we are. This is the veld being a very typical South African word for bush, and low meaning we're quite low in altitude. Andrew, the most common, if I had to pick one, I would say would probably be the sounds, or at least the most obvious would be the sounds of either the crested francolin, who seem to have quite a thing for interrupting me in mid-conversation, and possibly even the Cape turtle dove, that you're almost guaranteed to hear if you stop anywhere in the bush. What else is common? The wee sound of the grey go-away bird, as well as the various cheeps and twitters of the little, more subtly coloured birds, but nevertheless equally noisy birds, like the scrub robins and the larks and pipits and cisticolas that inhabit the trees. We hardly ever see them, but we certainly do hear them. And some of them have the most beautiful lyrical songs. And we've had long conversations about what's running. There's a hyena. Oh, it's a daker. I thought it was another hyena. I was going to say, this is getting ridiculous. It might lead me to wonder about hyena dens. And just by the way, for those of you who were watching, I don't suppose any of you have any idea which two hyenas those were. They were so far away and fleeting for me that I absolutely wasn't sure which individuals we were looking at. My guess was some of the older sub-adults, maybe Bella or one of the February twins from last year, but I genuinely am not entirely sure. They could, of course, be hyenas that we haven't yet really properly identified.
What?
3, 2.
Welcome. Sorry about that. Just getting a bit chilly, just popping my jersey on, and we're on our way to a great surprise. And before we get there, I want to fortify myself against the cold. And all of us are going to start looking like Michelin men shortly. Brian has 4 layers on, and of course he's far worse off than I am. He's out, up in the air, no protection for most of his body from chilly wind. Sorry, just listening to the game drive. So we're looking for one of these bush signposts at the moment. A branch in the road to lead us in the direction. Aha! I see it. What could it be? What could it be? Standing by. Copy, thanks, Pete, no problem. So we're not quite ready to go in yet, and that is perfect because Virginia, hi Virginia, is wondering if we've seen that shy male leopard gajima again, the one we were habituating to the vehicles not so long ago. I'm just going to give some space for the other car to come out. And Virginia, he hasn't, but most of where he seems to roam is outside of our Travis area. So he only comes into that far sort of northeastern corner of Djuma from around Buffels Hook Waterhole through to Cheetah Cutline. Hopefully he comes back again. I'd love to spend some more time with him. radio. So, Nkomo.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot. Cheers, cheers.
Just have a squiz around. I'm sure the bamba is still here.
You can smell it. All right, awesome. Thanks a lot. Cheers, Pete. Yeah, all right. So there we go. And there we go. So apparently he thinks there's still some meat around. He can smell it. I haven't seen it yet. But what could eat meat? I don't know. Brian, do you know what eats meat?
Not sure.
Connor the carnivore? Has Connor escaped DRC? For those of you who are not sure who Connor is a member of our tech team who has a very healthy appetite. So before we get to the surprise, a quick update on the Birmingham boy. I bumped into the Sabi Sands management who went to go check on him, and as I sort of suspected, and that's why I didn't say, you've got to be quite careful, is that he's apparently fine, he's just a bit skinny. Standing by. Copy, thanks. Okay. Can definitely smell some meat around here somewhere. Oh, what's that? It's something that eats meat and climbs trees. It must be a shrike. It's not a shrike. It's a leopard, but now, which leopard is it? I know which leopard it is. Brian knows which leopard it is, but we will see which one it is shortly. So I'm going to give you guys the joy of identifying it for yourself. Okay. Hello, hello. There we go. Now for our leopard experts out there, let's see who's going to be the quickest to ID which leopard this is. If you know which leopard this is, pop us an email on questions@wildearth.tv or use the hashtag Safari Live on Twitter. Isn't that absolutely stunning? Now, I can definitely smell meat around here somewhere. Can you smell that, Brian? Not in that beautiful big marula tree that she's currently sleeping in. Oh, stunning. So I hope you guys are grabbing some screenshots. I'm going to take a few photos quickly. And if you have some screenshots, please share them. Pop them on Facebook or on Twitter with the hashtag Safari Live. So I'll give you a clue. This is one of the leopards who's a mommy at the moment. You can see that wonderful white tip to the tail that the cubs are so adept at following. Miss. Oh dear. Yeah. I just saw his head now. So guys, there's a hyena behind us. It looks like it's going to come a bit closer now. And well done to Shannon and Raisa and many others who got this leopard correct. It is Shadow. So she's not with the cubs at the moment. The den is probably about 900 meters from here. And she does have a kill somewhere. Oh, tired kitty. Now there's a hyena lurking about behind us. Can't really see it. It's in those round leaf thickets. Brian's trying to see if we can spot the hyena. You see him, Brian? He was there, but he was cruising around. There he is. Oh, he's going to disappear behind the other vehicle, unfortunately. He might pop around shortly. And she's watching that hyena at the moment. She doesn't look too perturbed. It's very unlikely that that hyena's going to jump up there to get her. Oh. I'm not sure. Now, I think that hyena's off mark. I can hear flies now. So I actually think the kill's somewhere on this side. I think there's a second hyena that's arrived. Well, hello to Monique, who's in London, and she's wondering about Tingana. She apologizes if it's already been answered, but she's just got home from work and jumped onto Safari Live. Monique, well, we were tracking him a bit earlier today. We weren't able to find exactly where he went, but hopefully we'll get some fresh tracks in the morning. The tracks have been walked over by a lot of elephants, and I know he did have that slight injury in his leg, but it's a male leopard. They have an incredible way of bouncing back from these injuries. So it'll be really good to see if we can catch up with him in the morning and have a better look at that injury. You can see she's got a very full belly, and you can see that suckle marks, that darker patch around her teat. So Mia's wondering, would that hyena be looking for the cubs? I don't think so, Mia. The hyena's going to be looking for the meat that I think she's actually finished, just judging by that grotesquely large belly she's sporting at the moment. If anything, the hyena's picking up the scraps, whatever little bones she was too big for her to eat. So don't worry, Mia, the cubs are safe and quite far from here. Gary says he loves the paws hanging down. There we go, look at that. Now, isn't that beautiful? You can see that very distinct back 3 lobes. Oh, no. She wants to hide her paws from us. Oh, looks like she might get up. Doing a bit of stretching. It's incredible how adept these animals are at moving in the trees. Look at that. So she might be coming down to head towards the cubs, so I'm not going to follow her after dark. So she is heading in the direction of the den. Oh, a little scent mark first. So we will try to get another last view of her, and then we're going to leave her be. But she's looking very fat, very happy, and very healthy. So I'm just going to turn the light off for a second, guys, as well, and move forward. Oh, scratchy scratch. I wonder if she maybe hasn't got a little piece of a kill stashed somewhere close by that she wants to take up the tree, maybe. Or she might head off for a drink, or head off back to feed her babies. But I think if she moves too far from here and moves in any direction towards the cubs, I'm afraid we're going to have to leave her. We need to turn around. That hyena wandered off that way. Obviously not. Oh no, there's the hyena. Oh, that hyena's stolen her kill. Well, it looks like a very big kill. That's probably why she didn't take it up the tree. Oh, almost saw what it was there. Oh, looks like she's actually coming to challenge the hyena. They do that sometimes, but it's quite unusual for a female leopard to do it in this area. They are quite small. How are we behind us there, Brian? But I have seen female leopards attack hyenas before. Oh, no. Oh, she's got a piece of meat. So then she did stash some of her kill where that hyena couldn't get to it. And she's carrying it away now. Not very much. How are we, Brian? There we go. Let's have one quick look. But I think I'd rather leave her be if we don't see her now. We go have a look at that hyena. So, what Seep said is he could hear that hyena behind when he first arrived, but they couldn't see it. So it looks like she might have lost that kill a while ago. But she went off in this direction. But I'm quite happy we've had such a spectacular sighting of her. I'm not going to push it any further. Let's leave her be and let's go have a look and see what her kill was and what the hyena's got. So while we get into the spot to see what that hyena's eating, let's go have a look at the beautiful African sky with Jamie.
So awesome that we've managed to spend a little bit of time with Shadow. I had to stop for this. I know we have stopped for the view a couple of times this afternoon on drive, but this is very unusual in terms of the view. The flatness of the cloud, and I think what we're seeing there is the end of the cold front and the sun, last rays of the sun just poking through. It is truly beautiful. There's nothing really more iconic than the silhouette of an African tree in the sunset. It was like our trees were designed for picturesque shots. Now, while Brent has been with Shadow, I've just been perusing Juma, using my spotlight to see if I can find any weird and wonderful nighttime creatures. Shadow and the hyenas, of course, count, but in this case, I'm talking more about things like the pangolin that we mentioned earlier. That would be incredibly exciting, or an aardvark, or a porcupine. Not these impala, that's not what I wanted to find at all. Hello, impalalas. Now, the reason why we are driving past in the dark I think I'm going to send you back across to Brent.
So we go, guys, there's the hyena. It's an adult male impala. If we come down a bit, actually, you can see the horns there. So an adult male impala, and that's why she's so full, and that's also why she wasn't able to put it into the tree. It'll be far too heavy for a leopard of Shadow size. So, but it looks like she got most of it before the hyena got here. Now that is a really impressive feat for a leopard of Shadow size. A big male impala. Now she's probably been took advantage of the rut that's happening at the moment, so the impala are quite distracted. Try and move forward a skosh. Now, I know this might be a little bit gruesome for some people, but this is nature at its most raw and, in my opinion, its most beautiful. Now, a hyena will be able to make use of a lot more of that impala carcass than a leopard would, for example. And looking from what's left, she may be a bit more meat around the neck and that, but the skull and those ribs will be too strong for her. I mean, too thick, too heavy for her to break into. But this hyena will be able to crunch through that. Listen to those crunching. So I'm just going to keep quiet. I'm going to turn our sound up a little bit so you can listen to the bone crunching jaws of the spotted hyena crocata, crocata. He's just eaten through the nose. Even he's a bit nervous, and he's nervous that a lion might come. He's probably a bit nervous that a lion might come, or other hyena, or sheep, another hyena that's more highly ranking, and steal that impala away. So you can see constantly lifting their eyes, checking around. So, oh, someone else coming in? No, thought I might have heard another set of footsteps. So Sandra is wondering, will the hyena eat the horns as well? No, Sandra, he won't. He's unable to digest keratin. So keratin is what the horns are made out of, and that is the same as hair or fingernails. So he won't eat the horns, but he'll eat pretty much everything else, except the horns and the hooves. Sometimes, inadvertently, they might swallow the hooves, but never really a horn, especially not with a male impala this size. Ivy has asked a very interesting question. Ivy would like to know, will this hyena call its clan so they can come eat? The answer to that, Ivy, is the complete opposite. This hyena doesn't want its clan anywhere near here. So hyenas, when they're out scavenging singly, like this one is at the moment, especially with a small carcass like this, will not want another hyena near it. So it'll not call anyone, and it'll really hope no other hyena hears it. There we go. That's exactly why, Ivy. Your timing was perfect. A higher ranking hyena has arrived and claimed the carcass for itself. So there we go. The one who was eating has been pushed off. And now the other one's running off, and a new hyena has claimed it. So a higher ranking hyena in the clan has claimed the carcass. So the only time they'll really call for other clan members is when there's a big lion kill, or during a territorial dispute with other hyenas. So if there's a bunch of lionesses on a buffalo, they might call in for moral support, or a hippo or an elephant or something big. But for something like this, they'll try and keep it as quiet as possible so they don't lose it to another member, as you just saw what happened here. So as I mentioned earlier, those massive teeth of a hyena that are designed for breaking up bones. And Cat and Tampa also noted, you can really see its jaws working on this meal. So this other hyena would have been attracted by the crunching of the bones from the first hyena and come to investigate. And probably as it got closer, it picked up the scent, charged in, and you can see very little sort of fight back was offered. So obviously quite a big void in the hierarchy between these two hyenas. Oh, you hear that, Brian? The other hyena seems to have found itself a snack somewhere behind us. Maybe a leg bone or something. I can just hear the crunching. Sounds quite close. Oh, but see, when you make too much noise, it might sound... Chasing. And even though it probably has the worst scraps, this one just had to make sure it didn't have a better piece of meat than she'd just stolen from. So Patricia is wondering, is the high-ranking hyena always a female? Well, if you're a male, yes. Every single female, even the most lowly ranked female, is more highly ranked than the highest ranked male. So if you are a male and a female arrives, even the lowest ranked female, sorry for you, there goes your din-dins. But there will be, of course, different hierarchy between the females. So it is the only truly matriarchal society out here in the bush. Really still night. With those massive ears, she could have heard this bone crunching from quite a way away. Now that doesn't mean this one's the highest ranking, so this crunching could lead to another hyena coming in and stealing that from her. So quite interesting. It is amazing the complexity of the hyena social structure. But the one thing that makes me think this animal is one of the higher ranking individuals in her clan is because, she has looked up now, but not nearly as nervous while feeding, doesn't look up as much, and is more interested in the feeding, whereas that first one was constantly looking up, constantly worried about another hyena arriving. Whereas this one's taking the feeding far more slowly, far more sedately, which leads me to believe it's probably quite a high-ranking individual. Do you hear that, bro? Sounds like there's another hyena feeding off something over there in the distance. Anyway, so Sandra would like to know, and Sandra's from South California, why hyenas always stand when eating. They will sometimes lie down and eat, but generally they want to be in a position that they are able to quickly pick up and run away with that carcass if the need comes. So that's generally why they stand, and also it enables them to use those massive muscles that attach to the neck and the legs there to really use them to best effect in ripping up a carcass and breaking through bone. Oh, charge in. And now look at that. That is a young hyena, so a sub-adult who has taken the carcass, so physically much smaller than the adult that was just feeding, but of course obviously born to a higher ranking individual. So the rank in hyenas is inherited from your mom. So now the little one, sorry Brian, the guy there, disappearing with the majority of the carcass. Look at that, probably about a year old. And this is much bigger and is now left with a hoof by the looks of things. And some skin. So not much Now, Raisa would like to know, these are Juma hyenas. Raisa, to be completely honest, I don't know. I'm trying to think. Trying to think from where I've seen latrines around here. I don't think so, though, Raisa. I think these could be from further west. Yes, there's not much there. That's just a punch of skin. I'm going to go see if that hyena's left possibly any other little bits. Oh, there was a little bit. Well done. So Kevin's wondering, did Shadow just skate away into the night? And that's exactly what she did. She had a piece of meat that she had hidden from them, and she took that opportunity to sort of get out of Dodge with a little bit of meat, even though she was really full, probably not to eat right now, but probably to store and eat at a later date. Now, it's after finding what the hyenas were eating, it's quite obvious why she didn't take it up the tree. It was too heavy for her, but she did seem to have the definitely the wrong word, but nevertheless the lion's share of that carcass before the hyenas stole it. She was very, very full and looking in very, very good condition. And what makes hyenas one of the more successful species is their ability to scavenge the tiniest bit of bone and their patience. Now, if a leopard has a kill in the tree, they can wait for 3 days for the tiniest little bit of skin or leg bone to fall down, and they'll take advantage of that. They often come and go, but they are incredible animals. And they do quite a bit of their own hunting too. They don't only scavenge. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Wow, that power is incredible. Listen to that. And that does look like a pelvic bone that's being absolutely destroyed at the moment. Really getting the most out of every little bit. Does that hyena look like it's blind in its one eye, Brian? It does. This hyena's blind in its right eye. So definitely, I haven't seen any blind hyenas at the Juma clan, so probably not from the Juma clan, this lot. So guys, it's been a fantastic having you on the Sunset Safari, and really great to catch up with Shadow again. I felt I haven't seen her in an absolute age, and so wonderful to see her looking fat, happy and healthy, and nice suckle marks on those teats. So don't forget, tomorrow, Sunset Safari, first drive on Cheetah Plains. And also don't forget to join us for the Sunrise Safari tomorrow for all the wonderful creatures of the African bush. Now, for the last few seconds, let's listen to a hyena crunch some bones.